Welcome everyone. This is your math tutor Naresh. This is the second tutorial on common factoring. So in tutorial 2 and 3 we're going to do practice questions. So let's get started. So we're doing common factoring. So example, okay, 1a. So 3x plus 9. So factor this. So look at both terms. In this case there is a number which is common, right? So you want to pull out the highest number possible. So that number is 3. 3 goes into itself and it also goes into 9. So 3 is our common factor. Then what are the two terms left in the other factor? So 3 times what gives me 3x? 3 times x. And then 3 times what will give me 9? It'll be 3, right? So 3 times 3 is 9. So that's how we do that. Now let's do next question. So 7x minus 14. So again we have no variable which is common because variable x only appears in one of the terms. So 7 and 14 we have something common, and that number, the highest number, is 7, which is common to both 7 and 14. So 7 is the common factor, and now we ask ourselves 7 times what gives me 7x? So 7 times x gives me 7x. Now for the second term, 7 times what will give me 14? 7 times 2, but we want minus, or we want negative, so 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. So that's x minus 2. Okay. And now next question, so we have 13st plus 8s. So in this question, so let's look at the numbers. We have 13 and we have 8, and there is no common factor between 13 and 8. So there is no number that divides both 13 and 8, right? So a number is not common. Let's look at the variables. So s appears in both, so s is common, and then we'll figure out the exponent. T doesn't appear in both terms, so t is not common. So the only variable that's common is s. Now both s's have the same exponent of 1, so that's all that we can factor. Okay, so make yourself a set of brackets, and then you're going to have two terms inside the bracket. So s times what will give me 13st? So I need 13 and I need t, right? So s has been pulled out as a factor, so then the remaining factor is 13 and a t, right? So 13t is the remaining factor. Now for the second term, I have pulled out a factor of s, so what's remaining is the factor of 8, right? So in other words, s times what will give me 8s. So s times 8 will give me 8s. So that's the answer there. Okay. Now we'll look at question D. So 2xy plus 5x. So we're common factoring. So okay, so let's look at the numbers. That's my approach. That's what I like to do. So look at the number first. So 2 and 5. Nothing is common between 2 and 5, right? Because there isn't a number that divides both 2 and 5. So now let's look at the variables. Is y common? No, it's not, because it doesn't appear in all the terms, right? So x is common because x appears in both terms. So our common factor is x. The exponent is 1 on the x. So then you ask yourself, okay, x times what will give me 2xy? So in other words, I've pulled out a factor of x. What's the remaining factor? So that is 2y. So x times 2y gives me 2xy. So let's figure out the second term, and that is trivial. So x times what will give me 5x? X times 5 will give me 5x, right? And remember, you can always do it the long way, right? So you could take 2xy and divide by x. The x's cancel out and you're left with 2y. That's how you get that. To get this term, you can take 5x, divide by your common factor of x. The x's divide themselves out, and we're left with a factor of 5. And that's how we get that. Okay, so now let's look at next question. So 3t squared minus 4t. So again, let's look at the numbers, the 3 and the 4. Nothing common between 3 and 4 that we can pull out. T is common, appears in both terms. So what exponent should we pull out? This is t squared, this is t to the 1. We always pull out the one with the lowest exponent. So t times what will give me 3t squared? So I need a 3, right? So t times 3. Now t times what gives me t squared? T times t, right? So here I may want to do it this way. So 3t squared divided by t. The 3 remains. Now t squared divided by t is actually just a t, right? Remember your exponent rules. When you divide with same bases, you subtract the exponents. So 2 take away 1 is 1. So t to the 1. So 3t, that's what you're left with. And now, so okay, I'm going to erase it. So now t times what gives me 4t? So that's going to be 4, but I want minus 4t, so this is going to be minus, right? So that's all there is to that one. And now let's look at number f, 2mn minus 3mnt. So how do we common factor there? So between 2 and 3, the numbers, nothing common. So does m appear in both? Yes. Does n appear in both? Yes. So both m and n are common. T doesn't appear in the first term, so t is not common. So our common factor is m and n, and they both have the same exponents in both terms. So mn times what gives me 2mn? So that's a factor of 2, right? And now here I want minus, so I want 3, right? So 3mn, and I'm missing a factor of t. So mn times negative 3t gives me 3mnt. All right? Okay. So now let's look at question G. So 6s minus 6. Okay, so that's a trivial one, 6s minus 6. So what's common? Let's look at the numbers. 6 is common. S is not common because S doesn't appear in both terms. So 6, so make your brackets, and then 6 times what gives me 6s is S. So 6 times what gives me 6? 6 times 1. And I want minus, so it's S minus 1. Okay. Now H, so 3xt minus 6xy plus 3x. So don't let the different types of variables or letters scare you, right? Just remember your concept. The concept is we look at the number of terms that we're given, and our process is we'll look at the number first. So we have 3, 6, and 3. So we take out the highest number that divides into all 3. In this case, that is 3. Then we look at the variable x. Does x appear in all 3? Yes, it does. Okay, so what's the exponent? We want to take out the lowest exponent. And in this case, it happens to be 1, 1, 1, exponent of 1 in all 3 for the variable x. Okay, so what about t? T is not common because it only appears in the first term and not in the other 2. And what about y? Same thing with y. Y is not common because it doesn't appear in all the terms. So our common factor is 3x, and now let's find the remaining terms inside the bracket. So 3x times what will give me 3xt? I'm just missing a factor of t from here, right? So 3x times t is 3xt. Over here, so 3 times what will give me 6? 2, and I want it to be minus. X I already have, and then I'm missing a factor of y. So you can multiply it out. So 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. X times y is xy. For the last term, I already have 3x. I don't need anything, right? So 3x times what gives me 3x? It's a factor of 1. So when I say I don't need anything, it does not mean 0. It means it's a factor of 1, right? So from 3x, we've already factored out 3x. Then what's the other factor? 1 is always a factor of anything and everything, right? So we need to write 1 here, not 0. So that's that. All right. So now let's do question number 2. So different examples, but it's pretty much the same concept, right? So you got to get enough practice where you're comfortable. All right, so let's look at number 2a. So 3x cubed minus 6x squared minus 9x. Okay, so in this case, apply the same thing. Okay, so 3, 6, and 9. So the common factor is 3. Okay, and now x appears in all 3 terms, so x is also common, and we take out the lowest exponent. So 3x is our common factor. What are we left with? So 3x. We've already pulled 3x from 3x cubed, so all we're missing is a factor of x squared, right? So 3 times 1 is 3, x times x squared is x to the 3. And now over here, so 3 times what will give me negative 6? Negative 2. X times what will give me x squared? X times x. For the last term, so 3 times what gives me negative 9? 3 times negative 3. And then x is already out, so that's the factor there. Okay. So we're common factoring, and that's the answer there. Now, so we haven't learned any other types of factoring. Here we're just focused on common factoring, so I'm going to say this is the final answer for this question until we learn other types of factoring further down the road. Okay. Alright, so let's look at the next example. So we have, what I mean by that is we can factor this further, but we haven't gotten that far yet. That's a trinomial, it's a quadratic function that can be factored, but we haven't learned that yet. So which is why I'm going to say that we will accept this as the final answer, because our job here is to do common factoring. Okay, so now the next one is 36t to the 4 minus 16t cubed. Okay, so look at the numbers, 36 and 16. So find the highest number that goes into both 36 and 16. So you can start with 2, right? So 2 goes into both, but 2 is really small because these numbers are big. So try 4. 4 goes into that, right? So 4 goes into 36 9 times, into 16 4 times. Okay, so 16, what else does go into goes into 16? Higher than 4, 8, right? 8 goes into there, but it doesn't go into 36. And then try 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, right? So 16 goes into 16, but doesn't go into 36. So I'm going to use 4. You could use 2, but then it means you'll have to factor again. Once you factor, you get your answer here. That won't be your final answer, and then you'll factor that again. So our highest number is 4. That goes into 36 and 16. Now the variable t is common, so we always want to take out the one with the lowest exponent. So here exponent of 4, here exponent of 3, so we take out 3. And then what are we left with? So again, so 4 times what will give me 36, and that's going to be 9. 4 times 9. And then t 3 times what will give me t to the 4? Simply a t. 4 times what gives me 16? 4 times 4. So t cubed is already factored out, so I don't need anything else. So this is 9t minus 4. So that's the answer there. Alright, so now let's look at question C. 18x squared minus 9xy squared plus x squared y squared. So again, this looks cumbersome, but don't let the different exponents on the different variables scare you. Now, so let's look at the numbers first. So we have 18, 9, and no number here, which means it's a 1. So 1, right? Nothing will go into 1, like 9 wouldn't go into 1 or 18, right? So as far as the number is concerned, there's nothing that we can take out. So let's move on to the variables. X appears in all three terms, so X is common. Let's take out the lowest exponent. Exponent of 2, 1, 2, so we take out exponent of 1. And what about the y? Y actually doesn't appear in the first term, so it's not common. So the only common factor here is x. And now inside the brackets, you're going to have three terms remaining, right? So x times what will give me 18x squared? So it's going to be 18x, because x times x is x squared. Minus, so I need 9, right? And then x is, I've already pulled out a factor of x. I'm missing a factor of y squared. So this is going to be negative 9y squared. And lastly, so have your plus, x times x will give me x squared. Y squared, I don't have any y out here, so I need y squared as a factor. So x times x gives me x squared times y squared is y squared. So that's the answer there. Okay. All right. So now let's do okay, so that was that. Now let's do D. So we have x to the 7 minus x to the 6 plus x to the 5 minus x to the 4. So common factor, so it's all x's in all the terms. So we go x and then take the lowest exponent, which is 4. So inside the bracket you're going to have your 4 terms. So this really is about your exponent rules, right? X to the 4 times x to the 3 will give me x to the 7 minus, so it's minus x to the 4 times x to the 2 will give me x to the 6. The next term plus x to the 4 times x to the 1 is going to give me x to the 5, and then minus x to the 4. So from x to the 4, I've already pulled out x factor of x to the 4, then the remaining factor has to be a 1. So that's the answer there. Okay. All right, now let's move on to number 3. So question 3a. So 7abc minus 14ab plus 21a. So the question that really is, just different ways of writing different questions, but the concept is still the same, right? So let's look at the numbers. So we have 7, 14, and 21. So 7 is common, right? 7 goes into all three numbers. And that's the highest number that goes into 7, 14, and 21. So a appears in all three terms. So a is common, and the exponent is 1. B appears in the first two, not in the third. C appears in the first, but not in the other two. So the common factor here is 7a. And now we're left with the three terms. So 7a, so from 7abc, we pulled out a factor of 7a. So we're left with a factor of bc, right? So that's another way of looking at it. So 7 times what gives me 14? 2. So a is already factored out, so we're missing a factor of b. And for the last one, 7 times 3 gives me 21, and then a we've already pulled out, so that's the final answer. All right. So let's do C. So 3C. I'm going to skip B. So 39 RST minus 13 RS. So what's the common here? So we have 39 and 13. So 13 is a factor of both. So 13 is common factor. We can pull out a factor of R. We can also pull out a factor of S. So what are we left with? So 13 times what gives me 39? It's 3. R, S, I've already pulled out a factor. I'm missing a factor of T. So this is 3T. Minus for the second term. So from 13RS, I've pulled out the entire factor of 13RS. So I'm left with a factor of 1. So that's the answer there. So 13RS is common. then 3t minus 1 is the other factor. So I'm going to stop the second video here. We'll do a third video where we'll do some more practice. So I hope you found the tutorial useful. If you did, please like or subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we'll see each other in the next video. Once again, thank you for watching.